The stars looked different from up here, Captain Jake Morrison thought as he stared through the viewport of the UES Endeavour. 3 months ago he had been teaching flight mechanics at the Academy on Earth, and now he was about to meet aliens for the first time in human history. His reflection in the glass showed a man in his early 40s with tired eyes and a jaw that he kept clenching without meaning to. Behind him, the bridge crew worked in practiced silence, checking systems that had already been checked a dozen times that morning. Lisa Chang sat at the navigation console, her fingers dancing across the holographic display, with the kind of confidence that came from 10,000 hours in simulators and another 1,000 in actual deep space flight. She had been the first person to plot a course beyond the solar system using the new quantum drive, and she was probably the best pilot humanity had ever produced. Right now, though, she looked as nervous as everyone else felt. Danny Sullivan was somewhere below decks in the engine room, probably talking to the machinery like it could understand him. The chief engineer had a habit of treating the ship like a living thing, which the rest of the crew found amusing until something went wrong, and Danny somehow fixed it by pure intuition. He was young for his position, barely 30, but he understood the quantum drive better than the scientists who had designed it. Dr. Karen Hughes stood near the medical station, reviewing files on her tablet for what must have been the 100th time. She was their chief medical officer, and the only person on board who had read every available piece of information about alien biology that Earth's scientists had compiled. It was not much. The aliens had shared some basic data, but they had been vague about details, saying everything would be explained during the formal introduction. The formal introduction was happening in about 20 minutes. A massive vessel appeared on the main screen, dwarfing the Endeavour like an ocean liner next to a fishing boat. The alien ship was called the Harmony Dawn, according to their translator devices, and it looked like someone had grown a building in space rather than built it. Organic curves mixed with geometric patterns in ways that hurt to look at for too long. Lights pulsed across its surface in colors that did not quite match anything in human experience. Jake touched the communication panel. His hand was steady, which was good because his heart was trying to punch its way out of his chest. The aliens had been polite during their initial radio contact, almost formal to the point of being stiff. They had explained that humanity was being invited to join something called the Galactic Council, an organization of civilized species that maintained peace and cooperation across this section of the galaxy. It sounded too good to be true, which made Jake suspicious. But Earth's governments had decided to accept the invitation. Someone had to go meet them, and Jake had volunteered before he could think better of it. The communication channel opened with a soft chime. A face appeared on the screen, and Jake had to force himself not to react. The alien looked almost insect-like, with multiple eyes arranged around a central face that seemed to have too many moving parts. Its skin was a deep purple color, and it wore something that might have been clothing or might have been part of its body. "Captain Morrison," the alien said, and the translator device turned its clicking sounds into perfect English with just a slight delay. "I am Commander Zixtal of the Valorian species. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I welcome humanity to the greater community of thinking beings." Jake had practiced his response 100 times. "Commander Zixtal, on behalf of humanity and the people of Earth, we are honored to accept your welcome. We look forward to learning our place among the stars." The alien's face did something that might have been a smile. "Your vessel is cleared to dock at Bay 7. We have prepared quarters for your delegation and arranged the standard assessment process. This is merely a formality that all new species undergo. It helps us understand how best to integrate your people into the Council's structure." The word assessment made something in Jake's gut twist, but he kept his expression neutral. "We're ready to proceed whenever you are." The docking procedure took 15 minutes and went smoothly despite the fact that human and alien technology had never been designed to work together. Lisa guided the Endeavour into the docking bay, with the kind of precision that made it look easy. The clang of the docking clamps engaging echoed through the hull. Jake gathered his team in the airlock. Besides Lisa, Danny, and Karen, there were 3 other crew members coming along: linguist Paul Martinez, security officer Amy Rogers, and junior scientist Greg Fisher. They all wore their dress uniforms, dark blue with Earth's flag on the shoulder and the newly designed United Earth Space insignia on the chest. They looked professional and capable, which was exactly what Jake had hoped for. "Remember," Jake said quietly, We're representing the entire human race today. Stay calm, be respectful, and don't agree to anything without running it past me first." Danny grinned. "So basically, act like we're meeting the in-laws for the first time?" The tension broke slightly and a few people smiled. Karen shook her head. "The in-laws probably won't be running medical tests on us." The airlock cycled open, and they stepped into a corridor that was clearly not designed for humans. The ceiling was too high. The floor had an odd springy texture, and the lighting came from strips that ran along the walls in patterns that seemed to shift when you were not looking directly at them. The air smelled like copper and something else, something organic but not quite plant-like. Commander Zixtal was waiting for them along with half a dozen other aliens of different species. Some were tall and thin, others were short and broad, and one looked like it was made of living crystal. They all watched the humans with expressions that were impossible to read. "Welcome aboard the Harmony Dawn," Zixtal said. "Please follow me to the assessment center. This process typically takes several hours, but we have arranged for refreshments and rest periods as needed." They walked through corridors filled with aliens going about their business. Most of them stopped to stare at the humans, and Jake noticed that the staring had a quality to it that made him uncomfortable. It was not quite hostile, but it was not friendly either. It was the way scientists might look at an interesting specimen. The assessment center turned out to be a large room filled with equipment that looked medical, but also somehow wrong. Karen immediately started asking questions about the devices, her professional curiosity overriding her nervousness. The alien seemed pleased by her interest and began explaining the process. The tests would measure physical capabilities, psychological responses, pain tolerance, environmental adaptability, and something the translator called social cohesion factors, which none of the humans quite understood. Every species that joined the council underwent the same assessment. It was how they determined where each species fit in the galactic community. Jake did not like the sound of that, but he had his orders. Earth's leaders wanted humanity in the council, and that meant playing by their rules, at least for now. The first test was simple enough, a basic physical examination that Karen supervised to make sure nothing harmful was happening. The alien seemed almost bored by this part, going through motions they had obviously performed thousands of times before. Then came the psychological tests, questions that seemed designed to measure aggression and cooperation in ways that felt uncomfortably personal. Hours passed, and the humans rotated through different stations. Danny joked his way through most of it, which seemed to confuse the alien technicians. Lisa remained focused and serious, treating each test like a navigation problem to be solved. Karen took notes on everything, already thinking about how to brief Earth's medical community on what she was learning. Jake was in the middle of some kind of reaction time test when he noticed the alien technicians starting to whisper to each other. Their body language, alien as it was, suggested confusion and maybe concern. One of them looked at a display screen, then looked at Jake, then looked back at the screen like it might have changed. Commander Zixtal appeared in the doorway, and the technicians immediately went silent. The commander's face did that thing that might have been a smile again, but this time it looked forced. "Captain Morrison," Zixtal said carefully, "there appears to be some irregularity in your species' results. Nothing to be concerned about, merely unexpected. Would you mind if we ran a few additional tests?" Every instinct Jake had developed over 20 years of military service was suddenly screaming that something was wrong. The conference room was larger than any space Jake had seen on the Harmony Dawn, and it was packed with aliens. Hundreds of them filled seats arranged in a massive circle, each species clustered in their own section. The room went silent when Commander Zixtal led the human delegation inside. Jake could feel the weight of all those alien eyes on him, and he kept his expression neutral even though his heart was pounding. Ambassador Krelvin stood at the center of the room on a raised platform. This alien was different from Zixtal, taller and more humanoid in shape, but with skin that seemed to shimmer like oil on water. When it moved, the colors shifted across its body in patterns that might have been communication, or might have been just biology. The translator device on Jake's collar clicked softly as it calibrated to the new voice. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Krelvin began, "we gather today to discuss the assessment results of species number 848, the humans of planet Earth. What I'm about to share with you is unprecedented in the 200,000 years of Council history. Jake glanced at Lisa, who was standing next to him trying to look calm. Danny was on his other side, and for once the engineer was not making jokes. Karen stood behind them with the rest of the crew, her tablet ready to record everything. Krelvin activated a holographic display that filled the air above the platform. Numbers and charts appeared floating in 3 dimensions, showing data that meant nothing to Jake. But the reaction from the alien audience told him everything he needed to know. The room erupted in sounds that the translator could not keep up with, clicking and whistling and humming all at once. "This cannot be accurate," someone shouted, and the translator managed to catch that. "The equipment must be malfunctioning." "We ran the test 17 times, Krelvin said, raising its voice. "We used different equipment. We had 3 separate teams verify the results. The data is correct." Another alien stood up, this one looking like it was made of rocks held together by some invisible force. "Then the humans must have cheated somehow. These numbers violate basic xenobiology principles." Jake stepped forward without thinking. "Excuse me, but what exactly is the problem with our results?" The room went silent again. Krelvin turned to face him, and those shifting colors on its skin seemed to move faster. "Captain Morrison, your species has created something of a scientific crisis. Your assessment scores are impossible." "Impossible how?" Karen asked, her scientific curiosity overriding protocol. Krelvin manipulated the holographic display and new images appeared. "Let me explain. Every species in the Council has been assessed using the same methods. These tests measure fundamental traits that determine how a species functions in galactic society. Pain tolerance, environmental adaptability, psychological resilience, aggression levels, and cooperative capacity." The display showed a complex chart with hundreds of colored dots, each one presumably representing a species. They were arranged in clusters, groups that shared similar characteristics. Species with high pain tolerance and environmental adaptability are typically warrior races. Krelvin continued. They score high on aggression but low on cooperative capacity. They are solitary predators who work alone or in very small groups. A section of the chart highlighted, showing several dots clustered together. Species with high cooperative capacity are typically peaceful and communal. They score low on aggression and moderate on resilience. They work together but avoid conflict. Jake was starting to see the problem. "And we don't fit either group?" "You do not fit any group," Krelvin said, and there was something in its voice that might have been awe or might have been fear. "Your pain tolerance exceeds that of the Chromath, who evolved on a world where the gravity is 3 times Earth standard and the atmosphere is toxic. Your environmental adaptability surpasses the Zenthori, who can survive in environments ranging from frozen methane seas to superheated sulfur pools." The holographic display zoomed in, and a new dot appeared, colored red and positioned far outside any of the existing clusters. "Your psychological resilience is higher than the Tessarian hive minds, species that literally cannot experience individual trauma because they share consciousness across millions of bodies." Danny let out a low whistle. "So we're tough." "Is that really such a big deal?" "You misunderstand," Krelvin said. "Each of these traits alone would be remarkable, but you also scored in the 98th percentile for cooperative capacity. This should be impossible. Predator species are not cooperative. Warrior races do not build complex societies. The biological drives that create high aggression actively prevent the kind of social bonding necessary for cooperation." Lisa spoke up quietly. "But humans do both." "Exactly," Krelvin said. "And we do not understand how. In 200,000 years of galactic civilization, we have never encountered a species that combines apex predator traits with advanced social cooperation. The two things are mutually exclusive in every model of behavior we have developed." An alien in the back of the room stood up. This one was massive, easily 8 feet tall and covered in what looked like armored plates. Its voice was deep enough that Jake felt it in his chest even before the translator converted it to words. "Perhaps the humans are dangerous. Perhaps we should reconsider their membership until we understand what they are." Jake felt his jaw clench. He forced himself to relax and speak calmly. "With respect, we're just people. We're not trying to be mysterious or threatening. We answered your questions honestly." "That is precisely what concerns us," Krelvin said. "You do not seem to understand how unusual you are. Tell me, Captain Morrison, what is your planet like?" Jake shrugged. "Earth, it's home. We have oceans and continents, mountains and plains. The temperature ranges from very cold at the poles to very hot at the equator. We get storms sometimes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions. Normal planet stuff. The aliens exchanged looks. Krelvin manipulated the display again, and an image of Earth appeared. Your planet has 5 major extinction events in its geological record. Catastrophes that wiped out the majority of life. Your species evolved after the most recent one. The dinosaurs, Danny said. Yeah, we learned about that in school. Big asteroid hit the planet about 65 million years ago. And you speak of it casually, Krelvin said, as if planetary extinction events are normal. Captain, most civilized species evolve on stable worlds. Garden planets with predictable climates and few natural disasters. Your world is what we classify as a death world. The fact that intelligent life evolved there at all is remarkable. Karen stepped forward, her scientist mind working through the implications. You're saying most aliens come from easier planets than Earth? Much easier, Krelvin confirmed. The Valorian homeworld has weather patterns that vary by less than 10 degrees across the entire year. The Tessarian planet has no tectonic activity and has not had a major extinction event in 400 million years. Even the Chromath, our warrior species, evolved on a harsh world, but one that was consistently harsh. Predictably dangerous. Earth is unpredictable, Lisa said slowly, understanding dawning. You never know when a hurricane will hit or an earthquake or a flood. Our ancestors had to be ready for anything. Precisely, Krelvin said, and that explains some of your adaptability. But it does not explain your cooperation. Predators do not share. They compete for resources. Jake thought about human history, all the wars and conflicts and struggles. But he also thought about communities rebuilding after disasters, strangers helping strangers, the way humans came together when things got bad. Maybe we learned that we had to share or we would all die. Earth is dangerous enough without fighting each other all the time. But you do fight each other, an alien pointed out. Your historical records show thousands of years of warfare. Yeah, Danny admitted. We're not perfect. We fight, we compete, we have conflicts, but we also cooperate. We build cities and nations and international organizations. We send aid to disaster zones. We work together on big projects. We do both things, fighting and cooperating, because we need both to survive. The room was silent for a long moment. Finally, Krelvin spoke again. The Council must decide how to classify your species. This will determine your role in galactic society, your responsibilities, and your privileges. We have never faced a decision like this before. How long will it take? Jake asked. Days, perhaps weeks, Krelvin said. In the meantime, you and your crew are welcome to remain aboard the Harmony Dawn as our guests. You may observe council proceedings and learn about our civilization, but I must ask you to be patient. What you have presented us with is not just a scientific puzzle, but a philosophical challenge to everything we thought we knew about intelligence and civilization. Jake looked at his crew. They all looked back at him with expressions that mixed pride with confusion. They had come here expecting to be the students learning from advanced aliens. Instead, they had somehow become the problem that the galaxy could not solve. We'll be patient, Jake said. But I hope you understand that from our perspective, we're not strange or impossible. We're just human. Whatever that means to you, to us it's normal. The observation deck overlooked the main council chamber, and Jake had spent the last 3 days watching aliens debate the fate of humanity. Lisa stood beside him, pointing out different species as they took their turns speaking. She had been studying the council's structure obsessively, trying to understand the system humans were about to join. See that section in the front? Lisa said, indicating a group of seats close to the central platform. Those are the administrative species. The Valorians, the Syntheri, the Quinn. They handle governance, science, diplomacy. High intelligence, advanced technology, but physically fragile. Jake nodded. He had noticed that the aliens in the front rows were generally smaller, with delicate features and careful movements. They reminded him of scholars or bureaucrats. The middle sections are the industrial and commercial species, Lisa continued. The Tessarians are the big ones. They handle most of the galaxy's agriculture and manufacturing. Then you have the traders, the engineers, the service providers, basically the working class of the galaxy. And the back? Jake asked, though he thought he already knew the answer. Lisa's expression darkened. The warrior species. The Chromath are the main ones. They provide security, handle dangerous jobs, explore hazardous regions, high aggression, high durability, low political power. Jake studied the seating arrangement more carefully. It was not random. The council chamber was designed like an amphitheater, with rows rising up from the central platform. But the species were not mixed together. Each had their designated section, their specific place. The front rows sat close to the power. The back rows sat far from it. It's a hierarchy, Karen said from behind them. She had joined them on the observation deck with a tablet full of notes. Every species has a rank based on their assessment scores. It determines everything from voting power to trade rights to military authority. Danny walked up eating something that the Tessarians had assured him was safe for human consumption. It looked like purple bread and smelled like cinnamon. So the smart but weak species run things, the average species do the work, and the strong but aggressive species get stuck in the back row like problem children in a classroom. That's actually a good analogy, Karen said. The warrior species are powerful, but they're controlled through social structure. They're given respect for their strength but kept away from decision-making. It's a way to maintain peace, Jake frowned. Has it worked? For 200,000 years, Lisa said. No major wars, no genocides, no extinction events caused by conflict. Whatever we think about their system, it's kept the peace longer than human civilization has existed. The observation deck's door opened, and Commander Zixtal entered. The Valorian's multiple eyes focused on Jake. Captain Morrison, the Council has requested your presence. They wish to explain their decision regarding humanity's classification. Jake's stomach tightened. This was it. 3 days of debate, and they had finally decided where humans fit in their galaxy. He followed Zixtal down to the council chamber, his crew falling in behind him. The massive room was packed again, every species represented, every seat filled. Ambassador Krelvin stood at the central platform, its skin colors muted to soft blues and grays. Captain Morrison, the Council has reached a decision after extensive deliberation and consultation with xenopsychologists across known space. We have reviewed your species history, your biological data, and your cultural practices. We have debated the philosophical implications of your existence and the practical considerations of your integration into galactic society. Jake waited, forcing himself to breathe normally. The decision was not unanimous, Krelvin continued, but a sufficient majority has been reached. Based on your assessment scores, particularly your elevated aggression levels and exceptional physical resilience, the Council has determined that humanity must be classified as a warrior species. The words hit Jake like a physical blow. He heard Lisa inhale sharply beside him. You will be granted full Council membership, Krelvin said, but your species will be subject to protocols designed for high-aggression civilizations. Human military vessels will be restricted in certain sectors. Human colonies will require Council approval, and your delegation will take its place in the back rows of this chamber, alongside the Chromath and other warrior species. The massive armored alien that Jake had seen before, the one called Durkan, stood up from the back section. The Chromath welcomed the humans to our ranks. We will teach you the responsibilities that come with strength. Jake felt anger building in his chest, hot and familiar. They were being classified like animals, sorted into a category based on test scores and stereotypes. But he kept his voice level when he spoke. May I address the Council? Krelvin gestured for him to continue. With respect, Ambassador, I think you misunderstand what humans are, Jake said. You see our aggression scores and our physical abilities, and you assume we're like the other warrior species. But we're not. The assessment data is clear, Krelvin said. The data shows what we can do, Jake replied. It doesn't show why we do it. You said warrior species are solitary predators, right? They work alone or in small packs. But humans built cities with millions of people. We created global governments. We went to space not as individual warriors, but as teams, nations, a species working together. An alien from the front rows spoke up. Your cooperation scores were indeed unusual, but they do not change the fact that you possess dangerous levels of aggression. The classification system exists to protect all species, including yours. Karen stepped forward. Can I say something? She did not wait for permission. I've been reviewing the medical data you collected from us. You're right that humans have high pain tolerance, but do you understand why? It's not because we're tough or aggressive. It's because our ancestors who couldn't push through pain died. The ones who stopped when injured got eaten by predators or died from exposure. We evolved to keep going when hurt because stopping meant death. That proves our point, the alien said. You come from a death world. You are dangerous, We're survivors, Lisa said. There's a difference. Yes, Earth is harsh. Yes, we had to become tough to live there. But we also had to become smart and cooperative. A human alone on ancient Earth died quickly. We survived by working together, by building communities, by taking care of each other. Danny added, You've got this hierarchy based on the idea that species are one thing or another. Smart or strong, aggressive or cooperative. But what if a species had to be everything just to survive? What if we didn't get to specialize because our planet would kill us if we did? The council chamber erupted in discussion. Aliens turned to each other, voices rising in debate that the translator struggled to keep up with. Krelvin raised its arms and the room gradually quieted. Your arguments are noted, Krelvin said. But the classification system has worked for 200,000 years, precisely because it recognizes that certain traits must be controlled. Aggression leads to violence. Violence leads to war. By placing warrior species in positions of limited authority, we prevent the conflicts that destroyed so many civilizations before the council was formed. Jake looked up at the back rows where the Chromath sat. Durkan was watching him with eyes that seemed to understand something. Jake had seen that look before in soldiers who had been told they were too dangerous to trust, too violent to live normal lives. It was the look of someone who had accepted a label they did not deserve. Can I ask a question? Jake said. Why do the warrior species sit in the back? The question seemed to confuse Krelvin. The seating arrangement reflects the social structure. Those with greater political authority sit closer to the center of power. So the back rows are the cheap seats, Danny said. The place you put people you don't want too close. It is a practical arrangement, Krelvin said, its colors shifting to darker tones. The warrior species understand their role. Jake looked at Durkan again. The massive Chromath had not moved, but something in its posture had changed. Do they understand, or have they just accepted it? Captain Morrison, Krelvin said with a tone that suggested the conversation was over. The decision has been made. Humanity will be classified as a warrior species. You will take your place in the back rows. This is not a punishment, but a recognition of what you are. And what are we? Jake asked. Krelvin's colors swirled. You are strong, aggressive, and potentially dangerous. Like all warrior species, you must be guided by those with greater wisdom to prevent the violence that your nature makes inevitable. The words stung more than Jake wanted to admit. He thought about human history, all the wars and conflicts that the aliens would see as proof of their decision. But he also thought about the other parts of human history, the art and science and philosophy, the countless acts of kindness and sacrifice, the way humans reached for the stars not to conquer but to explore. When do we take our seats? Jake asked quietly. The formal ceremony will be held tomorrow, Krelvin said. You will be officially welcomed to the council and shown to your designated section. The Chromath have agreed to mentor your species in the responsibilities of warrior races. The diplomatic transport was called the Unity Bridge, and it was carrying representatives from 12 different species to a trade conference in a neighboring system. Jake and his crew had been invited along as part of their introduction to galactic society, a chance to see how the council operated in practice. The ship was massive but elegant, designed for comfort rather than speed, with quarters for each species tailored to their biological needs. Danny was in one of the common areas, showing a group of Valorian engineers a trick he had learned for bypassing power regulators when systems overloaded. The Valorians were fascinated, but also horrified by his casual attitude toward safety protocols. Lisa was on the bridge observing the navigation systems and asking questions that made the pilot nervous. Karen had spent most of the journey in the medical bay, comparing notes with doctors from 6 different species. Jake was in the observation lounge, watching the stars and thinking about tomorrow's ceremony, where humanity would officially take its place in the back rows. He still was not sure how he felt about it. Angry, yes, but also confused. The council's system had worked for so long. Maybe humans really were dangerous. Maybe they needed to be controlled. The ship shuddered slightly, and Jake's military instincts kicked in before his conscious mind registered the problem. That was not a normal vibration. He was moving toward the bridge before the alarm started. The bridge was chaos when Jake arrived. The crew was frantically working controls, and the main view screen showed a field of debris ahead. Twisted metal and shattered hull plating floated in a cloud that stretched for thousands of kilometers. A cargo ship had been destroyed here recently, torn apart by something violent. We need to alter course, the captain was saying. The captain was a Synthari, a species that looked like upright walking birds with 4 arms. Plot a route around the debris field immediately. The navigation officer, a Tessarian, worked its console with multiple limbs moving in practiced patterns. Captain, the debris field is too large. Any route around it will take us through the asteroid cluster. Our shields cannot handle that kind of sustained impact. Then we go through the debris field slowly, the captain said. Sir, some of that debris is still hot. Whatever destroyed that cargo ship happened recently. There could be active threats in the area. Jake moved closer. What kind of threats? The captain turned to him, feathers ruffling in what might have been irritation. Captain Morrison, please return to the passenger areas. This is a bridge matter. I'm a military officer with 20 years of experience, Jake said calmly. Maybe I can help. The captain hesitated, then nodded. Very well. The debris suggests the cargo ship was destroyed by a debris cascade, micrometeorites moving at high velocity. This area of space has unusual gravitational eddies that accelerate small particles to dangerous speeds. The cargo ship's shields failed and it was torn apart. Jake studied the view screen. How long until we reach the debris field? At current speed, 12 minutes. And our shields? Adequate for normal debris. Inadequate for high-velocity impacts, the navigation officer said. Captain, I recommend we retreat and request a military escort. The nearest council military vessel is 3 days away, the captain said. We do not have the supplies to wait that long. Danny's voice came over the comm system. Hey Jake, I'm in engineering. These guys are talking about shutting down half our systems to reinforce the shields. That's going to leave us dead in space if anything goes wrong. The Synthari captain made a chirping sound. All non-essential systems must be powered down. Life support will be maintained at minimum levels. All passengers are to return to their quarters immediately. Jake looked at the debris field growing larger on the view screen. Pieces of hull plating the size of houses tumbled slowly, reflecting starlight. How long will it take us to navigate through? At reduced speed with shields at maximum, approximately 47 minutes, the navigation officer said. 47 minutes. Jake made a decision. Captain, with your permission, I'd like to take my crew to engineering. We might be able to help keep systems running while you navigate through. The captain's feathers ruffled again. You are passengers, not crew. We're humans, Jake said. Trust me. We're good at getting through dangerous situations. Something in Jake's tone must have convinced the captain because it nodded. Very well. But stay out of the way of my crew. Jake gathered his team on the way to engineering. Lisa left the bridge with a quick analysis of the navigation route. Karen grabbed medical supplies. Danny was already in engineering, looking at the power distribution systems with an expression that Jake recognized as his problem-solving face. The engineering bay was full of aliens working frantically to redirect power. The chief engineer was a Valorian named Zith who looked ready to collapse from stress. When Jake offered to help, Zith just pointed at a bank of controls and said, "Monitor those. If anything goes into the red, tell me immediately." The ship entered the debris field and the impact started almost instantly. Small pieces hitting the shields at first, barely noticeable, then larger impacts that made the whole ship ring like a bell. The lights flickered and Zith screamed orders in its native language while the translator struggled to keep up. "Shields at 90%, someone called out. Danny was already moving, pulling open a panel that probably should not be opened while the ship was under power. "The shield generators are overheating. You've got 3 of them trying to do the work of 5. "We only have 3, Zith said. The ship was not designed for this level of sustained impact. "Then we need to rotate them," Danny said. "Drop one shield, let it cool. Bring it back up while another one cools. Keep cycling so none of them burn out." Zith stared at him. "That would leave sections of the ship exposed. Only for a few seconds at a time," Danny said. "It's better than losing all the shields at once." A massive impact shook the ship and alarms blared. "Shields at 70%. Captain is requesting more power to forward shields. We're approaching the densest part of the debris field." Jake looked at the power distribution display. They were already running everything at maximum. There was no more power to give unless they took it from somewhere else. "What about life support?" "What about it?" Sith asked. "Drop it to minimum. Just enough to keep everyone breathing. Route the extra power to shields." "That is dangerous," Zith said. "If we lose life support entirely, everyone on this ship dies in minutes. If we lose shields, everyone dies in seconds," Jake said. Make the call. Zeeth made a decision that probably violated a dozen regulations and started redirecting power. The temperature in the engineering bay immediately started to drop. Jake could see his breath after just a minute. The aliens around him were shivering, their bodies not designed for temperature fluctuations. Shields back to 85%, someone called out. Lisa was at a navigation console, somehow having connected her tablet to the ship's systems. I'm reading the debris patterns. There's a gap coming up in 30 seconds, less dense area. If we angle the ship 15 degrees to port, we can avoid the worst of it. The Tessarian navigation officer looked at her display. That angle will put us closer to the asteroid cluster. Yes, but the asteroids are predictable, Lisa said. The debris is random. Give me predictable over random any day. Jake made eye contact with Zeeth. The Valorian hesitated, then opened a comm channel to the bridge. Captain, the human navigator has identified a better route. Permission to forward the data? There was a pause. Then the captain's voice came back. Send it. The ship angled, and for a moment the impacts lessened. Then they hit another dense pocket and the whole vessel shuddered. Somewhere an alarm went off that Jake did not recognize. Danny was there in seconds, reading displays and muttering to himself. Secondary power coupling is failing, Danny said. Zeeth, I need to get to the access tunnel behind this wall. That tunnel is not rated for occupancy during flight, Zeeth said. Good thing I'm not planning to occupy it for long, Danny said. And before anyone could stop him, he had opened the access panel and crawled inside. Karen grabbed her medical kit and positioned herself near the access tunnel. If he gets hurt, I need to be right here. The ship hit something big and the lights went out completely. Emergency lighting kicked in a second later, casting everything in red. Jake heard shouting in multiple languages, the translator barely keeping up. Danny, talk to me. Jake called into the tunnel. I'm good. Danny's voice came back, muffled and strained. But this coupling is toast. I'm bypassing it. Give me 30 seconds. Shields at 55%, someone called out in a voice that was very close to panic. Jake looked at the chronometer. They had been in the debris field for 32 minutes. 15 minutes left if everything went perfectly. The temperature had dropped enough that ice was forming on some of the metal surfaces. The aliens were moving slowly, their reactions dulled by the cold. But the humans seemed fine, working with the same intensity they had started with. Power restored, Danny called out, emerging from the tunnel with burns on his hands that Karen immediately started treating. But that was the backup system. We don't have another backup. The council chamber was filled to capacity for humanity's formal induction ceremony. Jake stood at the center platform with his crew, all of them wearing their dress uniforms and trying not to show how nervous they felt. The last 3 days since the incident on the Unity Bridge had been strange, with aliens staring at them even more than before, and whispering in languages the translators could not quite catch. Word had spread about what the humans had done, working in conditions that should have incapacitated them, solving problems that should have been impossible. Ambassador Krelvin stood beside them, its skin colors cycling through formal patterns that Jake had learned meant ceremonial significance. Today we welcome the 48th member species to the Galactic Council. The humans of Earth have completed their assessment and have been classified according to our ancient traditions. Captain Jake Morrison, please step forward. Jake moved to the center of the platform, very aware of hundreds of alien eyes watching him. Krelvin held up a device that looked like a crystal wrapped in metal. Captain Morrison, do you accept on behalf of humanity the responsibilities and privileges of council membership? I do, Jake said, his voice carrying in the large chamber. And do you accept your species classification as a warrior race, understanding the protocols and restrictions that come with this designation? Jake hesitated. This was the moment he had been thinking about for days, the moment when humanity would officially become just another controlled species, powerful but kept in check, respected but not trusted. He thought about the seating arrangement, the way the warrior species sat in the back rows far from the center of power. He thought about Durkan and the other Chromath, accepting their role because they had never known anything different. Then he thought about what Lisa had said during the crisis, about choosing predictable over random. The council's system was predictable. It had worked for 200,000 years. Who was Jake Morrison to challenge it? But humans were not predictable, and maybe that was the point. Before I answer, Jake said carefully, I'd like to ask a question. Why do the warrior species sit in the back? The chamber went silent. Krelvin's color shifted to confused patterns. Captain Morrison, we have explained this. The seating reflects the administrative structure of the council. I know what you told me, Jake said, but I'm asking what it really means. The back rows are farthest from the central platform, farthest from where decisions are made. You said it's practical, that it's just how things are arranged. But seating arrangements are never just practical. They mean something. An alien from the front row stood up. Captain Morrison, this is not the time for philosophical debates. Please answer the question so we may proceed with the ceremony. I'll answer, Jake said. But first I need the council to understand something about humans. We don't see things the way you do. Durkan's deep voice rumbled from the back of the chamber. What do you mean? Jake turned to look at the massive Chromath warrior. In human military traditions, the rear guard is the most important position. It's where you put your best soldiers, your most trusted fighters. They're not in the back because they're being kept away from something. They're in the back because they're protecting everyone else. The chamber erupted in sounds that the translator struggled with. Jake waited for the noise to die down before continuing. When humans form up for battle or march in formation, the strongest fighters take the rear position. Why? Because that's where attacks come from. That's where you need people who won't break, who won't run, who will hold the line no matter what. The back isn't a place of shame. It's a place of honor. Krelvin's colors were cycling rapidly now. You are suggesting that our entire social structure is based on a misunderstanding? I'm suggesting that maybe warrior species have accepted a role you gave them without questioning what it really means, Jake said. You put them in the back and told them it was because they were dangerous. But what if the real reason is that you need them there? What if every civilization needs someone willing to sit in the back and watch over everyone else? Lisa stepped forward. When we were on the Unity Bridge going through that debris field, where were the humans? We were in engineering, in the access tunnels, in the places where things could go wrong. Not because someone told us to stay there, but because that's where we were needed. The aliens were doing their jobs, Danny added. But when things got bad, really bad, they started to break. Not because they were weak, but because they weren't built for those conditions. Their bodies couldn't handle the cold. Their psychology couldn't handle the sustained stress. They needed someone who could keep going, and that's what we did. Karen spoke quietly but firmly. Every species has strengths. The Valorians are brilliant scientists. The Tessarians are incredible organizers. The Synthari are natural diplomats. But sometimes you need someone who can work in freezing temperatures with failing life support and not quit. Sometimes you need someone whose first instinct when things go wrong is not to retreat, but to push forward. Jake looked around the chamber at all the different species. Each one evolved for different environments and different challenges. You've spent 200,000 years building a peaceful civilization. That's incredible. But peace doesn't mean safety. There are still debris fields to cross, still dangerous regions to explore, still problems that need someone willing to take risks and push past what should be possible. That's what warrior species do. That's what humans do. An alien from the middle row stood up. Are you saying we need warriors? I'm saying you already have warriors, Jake said. You've had them all along. You just never asked them if they wanted to be there, or if they understood why their position mattered. Durkan rose from his seat in the back row. The massive Chromath moved down toward the central platform with heavy steps that echoed in the silent chamber. Jake tensed, not sure what was about to happen. But when Durkan reached the platform, the warrior did something unexpected. He knelt. In all my years on the council, Durkan said, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber, I have sat in the back and accepted it as my place. I have been grateful for the honor of serving, even as I felt the distance between my people and those who make the decisions. I never questioned it because I thought it was simply the way things must be. The Chromath looked up at Jake. But you are right. When I sit in the back, I can see the entire chamber. I can see every species, every delegate, every potential threat. If something were to come through those doors intending harm, I would be the first to meet it. Not because I am being kept away from power, but because I am protecting those who wield it. Durkan stood and turned to face the council. I have been a warrior for 73 years. I have fought in hazardous environments, protected scientific expeditions, and stood guard over diplomatic missions. I have done these things with pride, but I have also done them with shame, believing that my role was lesser, that my people were too dangerous to be trusted with anything more. The Chromath's voice grew stronger. The humans have shown me something I should have understood long ago. I am not in the back because I am dangerous. I am in the back because I am willing to be the last line of defense, because I will not run when others might, because my strength means something only when I use it to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Ambassador Krelvin was standing completely still, its colors frozen in a pattern Jake had never seen before. When it spoke, its voice was quiet. In 200,000 years, we have maintained our system without question. We believed it was necessary for peace. We believed that controlling aggression was the only way to prevent war. Maybe you were right, Jake said. Maybe warrior species do need guidance. But guidance is not the same as control. Respect is not the same as fear. You can honor someone's strength without being afraid of it. Another alien spoke up from the front rows. What you are suggesting would require us to reconsider everything about how the Council operates. The warrior species would have equal voice in decisions, equal power. After 200,000 years of stability, you ask us to risk change. I'm not asking for change, Jake said. I'm asking for understanding. You can keep your seating arrangement. You can keep your protocols, but maybe stop treating the warriors like they're a problem to be managed and start treating them like they're exactly what they are, the people who keep everyone else safe. The council chamber was silent for a long moment. Then slowly Krelvin raised its arms in a gesture that might have been acceptance or might have been surrender. Captain Morrison, you were asked if you accept humanity's classification as a warrior species. Do you accept? Jake looked at his crew. They all nodded. He looked at Durkan, who stood tall with an expression that might have been hope. He looked at the back rows where the warrior species sat, far from the center but able to see everything.